Last but not least, we have chapter 4, lesson 5, and we're going to learn about ancient Kush today. The big idea is the kingdom of Kush, which arose south of Egypt in a land called Nubia, developed an advanced civilization with a large trading network. The main idea is the geography of early Nubia helped civilization develop there. Kush, Egypt, they traded, but they also fought. Later, Kush became a trading power with a unique culture, and both internal and external factors led to the decline of Kush. You're going to come back and watch this video. So we have a group of people called the Kushites, and they settled in a region now called Nubia, and they established the first large kingdom in the interior of Africa, so in the innermost part of Africa. The development of the Kushite civilization was greatly influenced by the geography of Nubia, especially the role played by the Nile River. So in every civilization we're going to talk about a river or rivers that aided in that development. So here we have Egypt, and here we have Kush. All of this in green is Kush, and the land of Nubia, Sahara Desert, the Sudan, and then Ethiopia. You've got the Red Sea, which we'll talk more about with the Israelites. And all these little red lines that you see, remember us talking about the cataracts? That's what these are, the rapids, the cataracts, which would have made travel or invasion very difficult, but not impossible. Ancient Nubia was fertile due to the annual flooding, just like Egypt. It was rich in valuable minerals that contributed to its wealth, such as gold, copper, and stone. These were some things they traded, so therefore they became rich. Farmers thrived there, and eventually one became the king of the region that he called Kush, henceforth Kushites. The capital city of Kush, or of Kerma, was protected by invaders by those cataracts, the rapids along the Nile River. And we've already know that Egypt and Kush traded with each other. However, relations between Kush and Egypt became hostile. That means they didn't like each other. Egypt feared that Kush would become too powerful. So instead of allowing that to happen and let their fear come to reality, Egypt decided to invade and thereby conquer Kush. So Kush was an Egyptian territory for about 450 years. And many of the Kushites adopted Egyptian religious practices, names, and language because they were there and occupied by them for 450 years. That's a long time. So then during a decline of Egypt, Kushite leaders regained control of Kush, thereby becoming independent again, no longer controlled by Egypt. Here is just a depiction of the rulers of Kush. Like the Egyptians, the people of Kush considered their rulers to be gods. Kush's culture was similar to Egypt's, but they also had some very important differences. As you can see, they built pyramids. They were smaller than those in Egypt, but very similar. They had stone carvings were made to commemorate important buildings and events, just like in Egypt. Their writing system was similar to Egyptian hieroglyphics, but we have yet to be able to understand most of it. So we've not found a Rosetta Stone for them. Kush was ruled by a few different powerful queens, and queens seem to have been more important in Kush than in Egypt. So the woman was highly valued in Kush. Kush regained its strength. As we said before, it conquered Egypt so they became independent, and then they conquered Egypt under the direction of Kashta and his son Pianki. By 751 BCE, a Kushite king called Kashta had conquered Upper Egypt. Now remember, when you're looking at Egypt, Upper Egypt is down here and Lower Egypt is up here. So Upper Egypt is closer to Kush. And Pianki ruled all of Egypt by the time of his death around 716 BC. So within the span of about 40 years, a little less, he took control of all of Egypt. And then the brother of Pianki, Shabaka, declared himself pharaoh, and this began the Kushite dynasty. Remember, a dynasty is passed on from one to the other within the same family. And this dynasty tried to restore the old Egyptian cultural practices, because remember, they had intermixed in that 450-year period that Egypt had control of them. The Kushite dynasty remained strong until a group of people called the Assyrians drove them out of Egypt in the 670s BC. Kush devoted itself to increasing agriculture and trade, and within a few centuries, which would be a few hundred of years, it became a rich and powerful kingdom again. Meroe, which was the kingdom's new capital, developed an iron industry. Iron is going to become very important. Resources such as iron ore and wood for furnaces helped the industry grow quickly. And Meroe became the center of a large trade network. So not just a trade route, but now we have a network, which is a system of people in different lands who trade goods. You've got another video that you're going to come back and watch. Here we see Kush, capital city of Meroe, in the Nubian desert. We know that ancient Kush was the center of the large trading network. They had connections to Europe, Africa, and Asia. Kush's location and production of iron goods helped make it a rich trading center. So you would have caravans from the south that brought goods like leopard skins and ostrich eggs into Kush. And this shows working with iron tools and weapons. At the Red Sea, the ports on the Red Sea, the merchants traded Kush's goods for luxury items like silk from China and glass. And goods from the Mediterranean came to Kush through trade with Egypt, of course. We know that Kushite culture was influenced by Egypt because of that period of the time that Egypt ruled. So the Kushites worshipped some of the Egyptian gods. They built pyramids just like the Egyptians. They wore Egyptian clothing, and they called their rulers pharaohs. But the Kushites also had their own gods, and their written language they called Meroitic because of their capital city, Meroe. We've already decided, or as we can see, the women were important, and the women of Kush were expected to be just as active in society as the men. And a lot of women rose to powers of authority and positions of power, especially religious authority. We'll come back and watch this video. So what led to the decline of Kush? Well, they had a loss of resources. Their cattle had overgrazed the land, which left nothing to hold the soil down, and it allowed it to simply be blown away. And iron makers used up all the forests near Meroe, so therefore, and they didn't plant any new trees. We've learned not to do that now. So their military power declined when they could no longer produce the weapons. Merchants set up new trade routes that went around Kush, Therefore, it weakened its trade. And then we had the rise of the Aksum. The Aksumite army of King Ezana took over when Cush's power started to decline. So you'll see this in several of our civilizations. You've got people on the outside looking in, and when they see that things are starting to go downhill, they know that is their time to attack. So you will see that happen a lot. So this is the end of lesson 4.5, which is the end of chapter 4 as well. And you will not watch the video on the next slide today. You're going to watch that later. It's our time compass video.